I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Welcome back to News du Jour. If you're new here, I wanted to start off with the disclaimer that while we promise to be a calmer space to consume the news, that's not to say that bad stuff doesn't happen. And when it does, we're going to be here to tell you about it and acknowledge its seriousness. However, we believe there's a lot more than doom and gloom going on in the world, and we will report on a range of different topics from entertainment to business to politics to art and fashion and much more. Whatever the top stories of the day are, that is what we're excited to tell you about. We're glad you're here. Today's episode of News du Jour was made possible by Anchor. So I actually use and love Anchor, a free tool for podcasters. It's everything you need to create, distribute, and make money from your podcast all in one place. It even has a matching app that makes tracking updates to your following super easy. You can download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, that's ANCHOR.FM today to get started. Hey News du Jour listeners, happy Monday. I wanted to start us off today with a story about the Navajo Nation. But really, it's more like two stories, guns and COVID. A strange and slightly frightening combo, but that's what we have to discuss today. But before we get into these two topics that are both recent events, I wanted to give you guys a brief overview of the Navajo Nation, the who, when, what, etc., to get anyone caught up on the background who might not know much about this group. Especially our international listeners. Shout out to the Philippines. We have added a new, I think, 6th country to the list. So we love our international listeners. And thanks for, coming here to get your news. We really appreciate it. According to the Navajo Tourism Department, the Navajo Nation originally occupied the Four Corners area of Colorado, which is where the northeast corner of Arizona meets the northwest corner of New Mexico, meets the southwest corner of Colorado, meets the southeast corner of Utah. Basically, the four states with 90-degree corners come together in a perfect T or cross shape, kind of like a four-square court, if you can imagine that. The Navajo Nation then sits straddling all of those borders, but the majority of it lies in the state of Arizona. If you just Google Maps for Four Corners, Colorado, and then zoom out a little, you can see a perfect view of where the Navajo Nation sits geographically on the map. This area is referred to on the websites as actually Navajo land, which I'd never heard before, but I think that's really cool. And the land itself sits on a combination of, quote, arid deserts and alpine forests with high plateaus, mesas, and mountains, end quote. And again, that's from the Navajo Tourism Department. Like so many other groups of Native Americans, the Navajo was subjected to atrocities and forced to walk long distances for imprisonment, resulting in the death of hundreds at first, and then eventually thousands. First, they had conflict with the Spanish settlers, and later on, American military commanders. So what happened there? In 1863, according to NPR, General J.H. Carleton, a military leader of New Mexico, teamed up with Kit Carson, a frontiersman known for rounding up native tribes, and essentially rounded up approximately 10,000 Navajo and forced them to walk all the way to Fort Sumner in the southeast part of the state, approximately 450 miles. The sick, the elderly, and children died due to the frigid temperatures, drowning while crossing the Rio Grande River, or shot when lagging behind. Those who survived this journey were imprisoned once they reached their destination. Hunger and exposure swept through and killed many more people. Pneumonia, dysentery, and smallpox all also descended on the tribe and took many of their lives as well. After about 4 years of this torture, the army declared it a failure and escorted the Navajo back to their homeland. But there were only about 7,000 of them still alive to make that journey. Approximately 3,000 were killed on behalf of this failed experiment of physical and emotional toil. According to Navajo NSN, so Nation, Navajo-NSN.gov, the website run by the Navajo tribe itself, the Navajo government was founded in 1923 and has over 110 chapters and a centralized government with 88 representatives. Their government has 3 branches, just like the U.S. government: judicial, legislative, and executive. The council chambers are in Window Rock, Arizona, and the Navajo language is spoken during session. They have their own Navajo Nation seal, flag, faith, and even a newspaper, the Navajo Times. So, what's being reported on lately in that newspaper? Well, there's been 2 important things, the things I wanted to tell you guys about especially. First, COVID. So, COVID hit the Navajo Nation particularly hard. BBC stated that existing health issues, access to healthy food, and poverty on the reservation have all played a role in the spread of the virus. 1/3 of the households do not have access to running water or electricity, making it difficult to sanitize their hands and spaces. Additionally, Navajo households often are multi-generational, which led the virus to reaching elderly at a swifter pace than elsewhere. Again, BBC reported that 300 people have already died of the disease as of June 14th. Fortunately, there has been a big push from the Federal Bureau of Indian Affairs to get the Navajo what they need, and they received $600 million as a part of the stimulus package. But a lot of money has come from an unexpected place, actually: Ireland. So why Ireland, right? Shout out to our Irish listeners out there. Well, I'll quote the BBC on this one. Quote, more than $5.1 million has been raised for the, quote, Navajo Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund, a crowdfunding campaign started by former Navajo attorney Ethel Brand. In an unusual twist, thousands of dollars have come in from donors in Ireland. Many are paying respects to the Choctaw Indians who in 1847 donated $170 towards relief efforts in Ireland during the Great Hunger. That is so freaking cool, right? $170 might not be a lot now, but it was a lot then. And from people who had suffered so much and may have had little to give, it was pretty amazing. And now that kindness is being repaid financially, and it's really amazing. So, where did the gun part of this conversation come in? Well, in even more recent Navajo news, the Navajo Nation might be buying America's oldest gun company, Remington Arms. As this company, among so many others, is preparing to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This is the kind where the company just gets restructured because it's bankrupt, not actually taken apart. The company is, quote, in advanced talks for a partial sale to the Navajo Nation, end quote, according to Reuters on Friday. Remington has previously filed for bankruptcy in 2018 after one of their guns, the Bushmaster AR-15 style rifle was used to kill 20 first graders in 2012. The Navajo bid on the company back in 2018, but was rejected. Now they seem to be back at the negotiating table. Back in 2018, the Navajo said they would refocus Remington, and they wanted to refocus on hunting firearms and a quote-unquote smart gun technology that would essentially make it to where the gun would only recognize its owner, making use of it less appealing for, stealing them or making them less dangerous in hands of children and adolescents. So we'll see what happens there. Unfortunately, for our second story, I'm having to take us back to Louisville, Kentucky, for yet another fatal shooting there. There was a fatal shooting in Louisville, Kentucky, while people were gathered protesting the death of another homicide victim, Breonna Taylor. We all know she was also killed by a gun. And now we know that the victim here is Tyler Charles Girth, a white male aged 27 who is participating in the protests. We know that the suspect who has been arrested was causing trouble at the otherwise peaceful protests routinely and was asked to leave several times prior to this incident. But unfortunately, that's pretty much all we know at this time. But I'm definitely planning to keep you guys posted as the story unfolds and just didn't want to overlook this incident. So more to come on that soon. So for our third and final story today, Tay Sweezy. So Taylor Swift used to be the type to avoid any type of political discussion. After seeming to mellow out a little after her Bad Girl Revolution, she's now spoken out about a lot of issues, but mostly surrounding gender. She has now most recently spoken out about the census overlooking an important demographic, non-binary individuals. She said, quote, "I got my census the other day, and there were two choices for gender. There was male and female. And that erasure is so upsetting to me. The erasure of transgender and non-binary people. When you don't collect information on a whole group of people, that means you have every excuse in the world not to support them. When you don't collect data on a community, that's really, really a brutal way of dismissing them." Swift concluded with a call on her fans to vote, saying, "Obviously, we all need to exercise our right to vote this year. We need to check out our absentee ballot policy in our states, and we need to make sure that we elect people who care about all communities." End quote. Well, we couldn't agree more, Taylor. We have to get out and vote. But the most important time to vote is in local and legislative elections. Why? The legislature are the people who make the vast majority of laws. The local ones are often going to affect your life much more directly. And here in Oklahoma, we have an election this Tuesday. Yes, aka tomorrow. So if you haven't researched who to vote for yet, here is your sign from the universe to do so. And that is the news du jour. I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "The best way to make a dream come true is to wake up." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour for free for you guys. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, sugarfree_media on Twitter, and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. You can also subscribe to our emails on our blog so that you get an email alert every time we have a new poster announcement. And that's at www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again tomorrow. broadcasting from Oklahoma.